That's all from the BBC News at 6. It's goodbye from me. And on BBC One, we can join the BBC's news teams where you are. Bye-bye.
Tonight on Reporting Scotland, weeks of travel disruption. The Forth Road Bridge will be closed until the new year as engineers work to repair a serious crack in the structure. 11-mile tailbacks at the Kincardine Bridge this morning, and more pain for commuters on both road and rail tonight.
It's just a pity that some of those idiots sitting in offices couldn't have thought on they needed extra carriages on the trains.
Well, it's a nightmare. Really, that's all I want to say, it's a nightmare.
It was really long, it's really cramped. It wasn't very enjoyable at all.
More than 50 years after its construction and a year before it's replaced, we look at a bridge built for a different era. Also in the programme, a fall in the number of drink drivers, a year on since the legal limit was lowered. And trouble in the dressing room at Celtic. Manager Ronnie Deila says Anthony Stokes was suspended for more than just an outburst on social media. Good evening. The Forth Road Bridge is to be closed to all traffic until at least the new year, after inspections found a crack in part of the steelwork. The closure began at midnight last night and has led to severe disruption elsewhere as motorists tried to find alternative routes. The Transport Minister says the decision was not taken lightly and measures are being put in place to lessen the impact. In a moment, we'll hear from our reporters at the Kincardine Bridge, which is on the diversion route, and in the control room at the Forth Road Bridge itself. But first, this report from Stephen Godden on the day's developments.
This should have been rush hour. Instead, the carriageways were empty and the Forth Road Bridge was eerily quiet. The electronic signs carrying a short message with huge implications. Drivers jostled for space on the alternative routes, the tailback to the Kincardine Bridge reaching 11 miles at one stage.
It's taken maybe about an extra hour than normal, you know, because of the road closures and the bridge being closed, and they've closed the Kincardine Bridge as well, which made it even worse. We need to have about 5 or 6 miles, you know, to get here.
The question was how long would this disruption last? The answer came mid-morning. Scotland's Transport Minister confirming a 3-week closure necessary to fix cracked steelwork.
We believe that work would take us between Christmas and the New Year, and our working assumption is that the bridge would be open safely by the New Year. I appreciate the disruption and inconvenience that closure will cause, but safety has to be paramount for the travelling public and those working on the bridge.
This image shows the 20mm crack in the steel frame tucked away beneath the southbound carriageway. By yesterday afternoon, after 2 days of assessment, the engineers' worst fears were confirmed.
We weren't concerned about the bridge falling down. However, we were concerned that this component would have failed and resulted in an immediate step in the bridge deck. So the only real decision that we had based on the factual data to hand was to make recommendation that the bridge be closed.
To reach Edinburgh from Fife, that means an inland diversion to cross the Forth, going via Kincardine, adding around 30 miles onto the journey. And with the bridge off limits, other forms of transport will need to take the strain. The idea of a ferry has been floated, but the railway offers the most realistic alternative. ScotRail say repeating today's effort to add extra carriages will be challenging. These commuters face a long 3 weeks.
We're like sardines in that train, going and back. Should put more carriages on. I mean, it's ridiculous. But
I travel every day, but like today, the first time I struggled a lot. Like even they have got only 2 carriages. That's like at least build up some carriages more so people can travel back and forth.
Pandemonium. It's just crowded.
Alarming news too for businesses with goods and customers to transport in the run-up to Christmas.
There's always a rush to get deliveries done for Christmas, and funnily enough, you speak to any tradesperson, they'll find that all their customers say, can you get it done for Christmas? So there's always a big rush for most trades in the run-up to Christmas. They will be very badly affected, I think.
The aim is to have the bridge barriers lifted by the new year, but tonight's high winds underline the fragile nature of a timetable that will be under the utmost scrutiny. Stephen Gordon reporting Scotland at the Forth Road Bridge.
The scale of the problem facing the engineers is best seen from the air. Our reporter Aileen Clark flew over the bridge by helicopter and saw how difficult the repair job is going to be.
The view of the famous Forth bridges from above. But this is a view you will never have seen before. Not one car travelling across the road bridge. Over the decades, it's coped with everything other than the strongest of storms. But today it stands idle and still and empty.
Now, on a normal day, 70,000 cars, buses and lorries would be crossing that bridge, but this is far from a normal day. The only vehicles on that bridge today are those that have been taken on by the engineers trying to fix this problem.
This morning, a team of engineers were on the bridge assessing the damage which has been discovered. The crack has been found in steel underneath the North Tower, but all the steel work is being examined for any more signs of stress. It's difficult work in challenging conditions. And shortly after we saw these engineers carrying out checks beneath the other tower, all the team had to leave the bridge due to the deteriorating weather. The train has been an option for some commuters today, but with few spare carriages to bolster them, even ScotRail were encouraging people not to travel. On the other side of the road bridge, the new Queensferry Bridge is taking shape, but it won't be taking the strain off the current road bridge for another year yet.
We're told by transport officials that this is the first time that a main bridge in Scotland has been completely closed because of a structural problem.
But that will be little consolation to commuters and businesses worried about how this closure will affect them up to Christmas and into the new year. Aileen Clark reporting Scotland above the Forth Road Bridge.
Well, the Forth Road Bridge is more than 50 years old, and in recent years it's been showing its age. As we've heard, a new crossing is being built but won't be opened until next year. David Henderson has been assessing whether today's news was inevitable for a bridge designed for a different era.
It's half a century since this bridge was built to link Fife with the Lothians. And at the time, this was a cutting-edge design with a span more than 1,000 metres wide. But it's been a victim of its own success. Back then, traffic was light, but over the years, more Scots took to the roads. The bridge now carries about 24 million vehicles every year, far more than it's designed for. And now there are signs of wear and tear.
It was one of the longest suspension bridges in the world when it was built. But certainly the volume of traffic and the weight of the vehicles using it is much greater than would have been anticipated back in the days it was designed.
It's not the first time the bridge has needed major repairs. In recent years, the main cables had to be fixed after they were weakened with corrosion. But this latest problem is more serious. A structural fault right below the North Tower, with a crack in the steelwork some 20 millimetres wide. Without the emergency repairs now underway, this problem could have spread.
The first sign probably would have been that the deck would just drop at one corner when it came against the tower. The load would be transferred to the hangars that had the links that hadn't failed, and all traffic would stop immediately.
Soon, a new bridge will help spread the load. The Queensferry crossing is due to open at some point next year.
And when that new crossing comes into operation, it could mean much lighter duties for the Forth Road Bridge, like a limit on the number of cars allowed to cross it each day, or like this much more modest structure in Glasgow, limiting much of its traffic to just buses. David Henderson, reporting Scotland.
In a moment, we'll be speaking to our reporter at the Forth Road Bridge, but first to Andrew Black, a wet Andrew Black, who's at the Kincardine Bridge on the diversion route for motorists. How busy has it been tonight, Andrew?
Well, Sally, if you take a look behind me here, you'll probably be able to see some traffic snaking its way across the Clackmannanshire Bridge. That's one of the alternative routes that drivers have been using today to get across the Forth. Now this whole area has been something of a traffic pinch point today. It's also the part of the world where motorists have been trying to get onto the Kincardine Bridge as well, and that's where we saw all those long tailbacks this morning. Police have been in the area all day. They've been looking at the traffic management. They've been changing their plans as things have been changing throughout the day, and they're still here this evening to keep an eye on things. I think though definitely until some more permanent plans are put in place, I think it's fair to say that if you're a motorist in this part of the world, you're probably going to be experiencing a lot of misery in the days to come.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Let's go now to the Forth Road Bridge. Our reporter Lisa Summers is in the control room there tonight. Lisa.
Sally, this is Transport Scotland's control centre for the whole of Scotland, so this is where they're going to be keeping a very keen eye on developments on the Forth Road Bridge over the next few weeks. If we take a look at the big screens, you can see in front of me the Kincardine Bridge and the Clackmannanshire Bridge, which is where Andrew is at the moment. You can still see the traffic snaking across it, and just next to that, on the screen next to it, you can see the Forth Road Bridge absolutely deserted this evening. We can mix through to our live camera where you can see the scene outside tonight. We have the red lights and of the north and south towers of the road bridge, and of course just to the left we've got the lights of the new Forth crossing. It's absolutely deserted. We'll have to get used to that over the next 3 weeks. Only emergency vehicles will be allowed to cross, and of course the vans that are transporting the fleet of engineers whose work it is to get those repairs underway as quickly as possible. Hopefully, in terms of the transport, things will calm down over the weekend. There's some bad weather warnings as well, so that should help not to have so much traffic on the roads. But of course the next critical point is going to come on Monday morning.
Lisa Summers at the Forth Road Bridge and Andrew Black at the Kincardine Bridge. Thank you both. You're watching Reporting Scotland from the BBC, still to come on tonight's programme. Judy Murray's controversial plan for a development on Greenbelt land gets Sir Alec Ferguson's backing.
And in sport, we're in Belfast with Edinburgh Rugby the day their head coach signs a new deal. We'll also hear from the Celtic manager who tells us why he suspended one of his players. And you'll find out what happened next at the UK Snooker Championships.